Hello, this is the daily weather briefing for Monday, April 25th. And we've got quite a bit of weather to talk about today, so let's get started. Let's look at today's current weather conditions across the United States. Starting in the northwest, generally nice conditions here with high pressure system off the west coast here. So most of the conditions have cleared out. Maybe a few scattered showers out here in the mountains here, but generally the winds are mostly out of the northwest here, so not much going on. Looking in the central portion of the Intermountain West, we have a deep low pressure system that's forming out here that has rocketed onto the coast here, which is going to be our big severe weather producer later tomorrow. Quite a bit of precipitation, some light snow, some scattered showers, and a few thunderstorms out here in Arizona, and some interesting temperatures too. Look, we got some temperatures in the 30s and 50s out here, and some pretty strong winds out ahead of this storm system. And then along the northern tier of the United States, we have a little bit of a frontal boundary with the kind of a polar front here. We've got a little bit of snow out here in Montana, but generally showers along this frontal system with this deep upper level low that's formed out here on the surface along the Minnesota area. And then we have a large area of a warm sector here now with generally temperatures ranging from the low 70s all the way up to around 99 out here in portions of southern Texas. But generally temperatures range from the 70s and 80s with a deep southerly flow off the Gulf of Mexico. And we do have a severe thunderstorm watch, which we'll talk about a little bit further. The Northeast is looking pretty cool at this point. Temperatures range from the low 40s all the way up to the around 60 degrees. So, temperatures are okay for this time of the year. Nothing too crazy at this time. Now, looking at the watch warning map, again, associated with this storm system that's coming into the Intermountain West, we have a lot of high wind watches and warnings with strong winds associated with this storm system. Also, we have some red flag warnings because of the dry conditions out here over the southwest for the potential for snow. We have some winter storm watches and warnings here in portions of Wyoming and a winter weather advisory out here in Idaho. And then we also, in the central portion of the United States, we have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for portions of southeastern Wisconsin and Illinois. And we continue the flood advisories and flood warnings because of the rains that we had over the last couple of weeks out here in the southeastern portion of the United States. Looking at our satellite, you can see this deep upper level low out here, mainly over Utah and over the southwest. Surprisingly or not, we did get some thunderstorms to generate here in Arizona without very little moisture. So that just goes to show you how potent this storm system is as it begins to move out in the central portion of the United States later tomorrow. And then we'd still have a pretty strong low out here just south of Minnesota, and a warm front that extends out of there, and you can see the convection out here in portions of Wisconsin extending down in towards Illinois. Now, right now we don't have a lot of thunderstorms forming on there. You're beginning to see some of these cumulus clouds that are becoming more tower cumulus clouds. A lot of moisture that's being flowed into there, even though the dew points are only in the 50s. Being that they've got a strong easterly flow here along the front, strong southerly flow, we're going to have to watch this area for possible rotating storms later today. And looking at the radar at this point in time, again, we mentioned all these scattered showers and a few thunderstorms and some snow out here in the Intermountain West, some decent snows up here in Montana. And then the upper level low out here that's producing a lot of precipitation across the northern tier of the United States, especially the upper Midwest. We do have a few scattered thunderstorms that have formed out here in portions of Louisiana, so we'll have to look at that and see how that plays possibly down the road. And then basically your sea breeze thunderstorms over here and portions of Florida here. Now we're going to take a look at the severe weather analysis. And yesterday we had approximately 10 tornado reports, and some of those were quite picturesque across Kansas, Nebraska, and all these basically being confirmed. We had some pretty significant hail reports and wind damage reports here also. A few out here, hail reports out here in portions of California associated with the new storm system coming on, and a few down here in the southern portion of along the Gulf Coast regions in here. So yesterday, even though there wasn't a lot of moisture, the boundary layer moisture was quite thin, there was still quite a significant event that took place. We had 115 events. So that just kind of goes to show you how dynamic the atmosphere is at this point in time. Now, looking at today, we do see a slight risk of severe thunderstorms over here across the upper Midwest around portions of Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, and Illinois, with a marginal risk that extends all the way back here along the warm cold front, which will eventually become a warm front in portions of Kansas and Missouri. Now, they also put a marginal risk of severe thunderstorms out here around San Antonio, central Texas. We're going to have to watch that and see how it plays down the road, because if thunderstorms do blossom here and we get quite a complex that builds up here, that could play havoc with the potential severe weather event that takes place tomorrow. Looking a little closer at the severe thunderstorm watch that's currently in effect, number 103. It's valid until 10 p.m. across the upper Midwest here. We have some decent thunderstorms out here by Milwaukee. Looking a little closer at those storms, this is kind of a freeze frame of that. These storms are isolated, and I would say kind of supercellular in some aspect. They're pretty much discrete, so we're going to have to watch these storms because they are riding along the warm front. So some of these storms could pose a potential down the road. Okay, so let's talk about day two. Day two is obviously the day that everybody seems to be talking about, and rightly so. There is a moderate risk of severe thunderstorms now. It extends all the way from portions of Nebraska down towards the Red River Valley. There's a very large enhanced risk around that area, and a larger slight risk that extends all the way from the Del Rio, Texas, all the way up to Lincoln, Nebraska, and so forth. So, what I wanted to just illustrate here is that I think this is a good move by SPC. I think they're trying to communicate that tomorrow has the potential to be significant, and people need to be preparing for this event for tomorrow. Conditions will be ripe for severe weather tomorrow. Let's look at day three, and that risk is right now at this point only a slight risk out here from around St. Louis down to Houston. But I would expect that there might be an enhancement here, probably across southeastern Missouri into portions of Arkansas tomorrow, just depending on if weather convection can rebuild in the atmosphere, whether the atmosphere can reload later in the day. And just kind of as a review, just to understand the thunderstorm risks, again, when we're talking about a moderate risk of severe thunderstorms, SPC is talking about more of a widespread severe thunderstorm likelihood. These storms could be long-lived, meaning tornadoes or severe thunderstorms in general, widespread and intense. So you could have some strong tornadoes, widespread wind damage, 80 plus mile per hour winds, destructive hail, anything that's above 2 inches or so. So I think they're making a good choice here. I have seen reports of the possibility of a high risk being issued, although it seems like the last discussion I read from SBC is they're not leaning that way because the cap may be in place and hold the extent or the coverage of the severe weather event down to moderate risk. One thing I would like to note here is the El Reno tornado that took place in Oklahoma. That was under a moderate risk. They did not have a high risk event, and really there was only some isolated tornadoes that took place during that time, but yet, as we all know, that was a significant tornado that did a lot of damage and took, unfortunately, several lives with it. So I think the important thing to note here is, and as you notice, I'm not spending a lot of time on the details of Tuesday's severe weather event, primarily because I don't think we're really going to know enough until we get till tomorrow morning, and we'll have a much better grasp as to what the general atmosphere is going to look like and what the local atmosphere is going to look like. A lot of it's going to be dependent upon where things form up tonight. We'll probably have a better idea later tonight, but a better view tomorrow morning. So the other thing I want to state too is tornadoes do not look at these categories. They don't even care. And you may have absolutely nothing that forms in the moderate risk, and you may have a significant tornado that forms in the marginal risk. The important point to make here is that no matter what area you're in here, in this severe weather category. All modes of severe weather are possible, and some may be significant. And if you're waiting till 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon to prepare yourself for this event and your family for this event, you're waiting too late. You need to be ready now, because if something does develop, the likelihood of something becoming severe will be pretty high tomorrow. The atmosphere is going to be extremely unstable, but then, some of the things we've got to wait and see is whether the cap will break. We have to look at where the upper level low is going to be coming in and how the winds are going to be positioned and so forth. This is a very highly sheared system. We noticed this today here in Arizona, where our company is located. This storm is going to be a very potent storm as it moves into the central portion of the United States. Let's look at the aviation portion, then we'll get into the 5-day. We do have some scattered areas of convective segments across the Intermountain West, the Upper Midwest, and along the Gulf Coast. We do have the strong jet northwest flow of the jet stream here between 20,000 and 33,000 feet across California for moderate turbulence. So we need to be alert to that. No icing segments at this point in time. Looking at the winds aloft at 5,000 feet, some decent southwesterly flow here across the central portion of the United States, with some winds here between 30 and 35 knots. Very strong northerly flow off the California coast and into the southwest here, associated with that upper level low out here in the southwest. Looking at 10,000 feet, again we have a very strong mini jet here out here associated with that first low that pulled out of the central portion of the United States. Winds there between 50 and 60 knots, and then some strong winds around that upper level low out here in the western portion of the United States also. Looking at 18,000 feet, you can see a strong jet stream behind the back end of the upper level low out here in in Nevada. Again, I think this low is going to be forced a little bit further to the south, but it's beginning to round around that low, so it's not going to dig much further. And then we have a little bit of a mid-level jet here, winds maybe between 50 and 60 knots around that severe weather potential. So I think, storms will be organized and have some potency behind them there. Then looking at 30,000 feet, again we have that deep upper level low around Nevada and the California border there. And again, we still have a strong jet behind this storm, so I still think it's going to continue to dig a little bit further to the southwest here, but it will begin to round the base and it'll stop moving further south. So let's take a look at the 5-day forecast here. And I'm going to switch highlighters here. And we do have that upper level low out here across the southwest. A lot of energy coming out behind it that's going to be strengthening this low as it moves towards the east. This upper level low in the upper portion of the Midwest is going to be weakening as it transitions up to the north. Looking at the surface features, I think this at 18Z, I think this low is going to be probably about right here instead of right there is where I believe it's going to form. And then we've got this surface low out here across the upper Midwest here, which with the front draped across here in this region, so this is going to be an impetus area for severe thunderstorm development down the road. Now looking at Tuesday here, as you can see, this trough is negatively tilted. We have a lot of energy that's going to be barreling into the central portion of the United States. The upper level winds are defluent aloft, so there's going to be a lot of lift in the atmosphere over a large area of the atmosphere. Now, the key here is going to be where these fronts are located. Right now, if you look at this GFS, we probably have like a warm front here in this area, and then we probably have roughly a cold front that kind of digs a little bit right here, and then we probably have a dry line here that's going to be generally around this area here according to what this GFS is right now. So now the problem that we have here and then what we're looking at is, if this is the case, then you would probably expect more of the severe weather to take place in this general area here. May get some weather up here because you're going to be along the warm front. You have some backing winds and so forth around the triple point, but the strongest area is right over central Kansas. Now, if we get we get a little bit of a reflectancy of a low that forms out here across the panhandle of Texas, you're going to get some backing of these winds, and I think you're going to have a general increase of severe weather in this area here. So my concern is I think really this is what's going to happen. I really think there's going to be a low that's going to form out here. It did this morning, and this storm had pulled away. I think we're going to see a little reflectancy of a low pressure system out and form out here in Texas. So I think the dry line will have the potential to pull up, and because and it will force these winds to back across Oklahoma. So I think the potential for tornadic activity, though it may not be a lot of thunderstorms along that dry line because there's going to be quite a capping inversion. Any storms that do form will be rotating. There's going to be a lot of instability and a high potential there. So a lot of it, what happens in Oklahoma is going to be dependent on what happens out here in Texas tomorrow morning. And if we see that reflectancy, let me just talk a little bit about an event. The El Reno tornado and the Moore tornado that took place in 2013 both showed a 850 millibar low out here they had the main low up here, but they had the 850 millibar reflectancy out here in the Texas Panhandle. Because of that, it backed the winds, and I think it made the conditions favorable for the tornadic activity across central Oklahoma along the I-35 corridor. If this doesn't form and you just have a dry line event, you'll still get significant thunderstorms that develop, but I don't think the tornado parameters will be sufficient at the surface to cause enough of the veering of the winds or shear in the winds at the surface to create the thunderstorms that would produce long track tornadoes. You still will have tornadoes, I think, but maybe not the significant tornadoes that we would see if this low forms or not. We'll have to watch that tomorrow morning. We won't really know until that takes place. Now, looking at Wednesday, again, we still have this trough out here that's going to be negative tilt. Now, it is going to be weakening, obviously, but there's going to be a lot of defluency here aloft, again, across this area. And then looking at the surface features, you're going to have this warm front that's going to be kind of dragging along here, and then you're going to have a cold front. Actually, I think you're going to have two cold fronts here, probably kind of looks like this, and then your dry line will probably intersect along that cold front pretty directly here. So you're going to have a lot of intersection there. Now, the key to this severe weather event for Tuesday is how quickly can this atmosphere reload? How quickly can you get this morning convection out of the area here and get this atmosphere to reload? I think if you could, you're going to again see a higher potential severe weather in this area here, because again, your parameters, you got a lot of defluency aloft. You still have a lot of moisture that's being pumped up here. Now the atmosphere may be worked over, but I think these storms that do form, I think they're going to quickly dissipate after midnight and move off towards the east pretty quickly, and I don't think they're going to be significant. I think you could still get some severe weather along here, maybe some isolated tornadoes along this warm front that we have to be alert in here into Illinois and possibly maybe Indiana, but mostly just this area here. I think again has potential for severe weather tomorrow on Wednesday. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as it takes place. Now the conditions may be more linear, but again, I think you'll still get those small spin-ups that could produce, damage. Now, looking at Thursday, we have a new low pressure system again that's coming a little bit further to the south. Now, just to kind of talk a little bit about this, the first storm came in about right here and then went up this direction. The second storm has come in about here and it'll move in that way. This third storm's coming in a little bit more southerly, and it will probably come in like that. So this storm will have a little bit more of an impact towards the southwest United States. They may actually get some rain and precipitation out of this. It's a very dynamic system on Thursday. The atmosphere or the central portion of the United States will begin to rebuild itself. We'll probably have a kind of a warm stationary front here along this area. Let me draw those in real quick here. So we'll have a new low pressure system forming out here around the Four Corners area, which this may be a little bit further to the south than what this is depicting at this point in time. And I definitely think we'll have more precipitation forming out here because this is a dynamic system and it is coming more off the Pacific. So, and there'll be a lot of moisture that will have time to move up into the area here. The question is, we still have, we don't have a high pressure system that's coming down and shutting off the Gulf. The flow off the Gulf of Mexico is still pretty strong. So a lot of moisture will be coagulating along this area here and south of the warm slash stationary front here as this low begins to form. So now when we look at Friday, so Thursday's going to be kind of a transition. Again, we have here more of a negative tilted trough, or excuse me, this is more of a neutral type trough, but it will become more negative tilt as the time goes on. Now, we have the upper level of the surface reflectancy out here around the panhandle. And again, a lot of it depends upon what forms here. About 1 o'clock, they're showing a lot of convection forming out here across Oklahoma. So what the GFS is kind of showing is kind of a warm front here, and then a cold front kind of a cold front slash maybe dry line intersection here across Texas. In this area here. So, I think this GFS is not really handling this day on Friday very well. And I don't know if we'll have this kind of convection taking place on Friday. We'll have to see if there's not as much convection, if it is a little bit further to the north, which I don't think it will be. But either way, I think we will have a potential for severe weather again on Friday, but I think the event will probably more look like this at this point on Friday. So now the interesting to look at is when we look at Saturday here. Now Saturday, again, we have this upper level low that's more negatively tilted, and again we have a lot of defluency aloft here. We have a pretty decent surface low here, as you can see. The interesting thing here is this system right here. And that system there will probably barrel under this one, and then will probably come up like this, maybe a little bit more towards the north here. That, even though tomorrow, on Saturday we probably will see, I think Saturday may be a little bit more of a significant event here. Sunday may be more of a significant event here. So we'll have to keep an eye on that as we move in towards the weekend. So in all, let's talk about our summary here. Again, we do have a potential significant event tomorrow for Tuesday. We may have more severe weather on Friday and Saturday and possibly Sunday that we need to be alert on. Again, it may be affecting mostly the southern tier of the United States and possibly the southeast. We'll have to keep an eye on, see how the models begin to trend. One thing about tomorrow, we will be doing a daily weather briefing more earlier in the morning after we take a look at the morning charts, and we'll be focusing specifically on the severe weather event tomorrow. We will not be having a 5-day outlook. Once we get past tomorrow and possibly Wednesday, then we'll take a look at the next storm system. We will be streaming a live storm chaser on Facebook tomorrow on our StormQuest game Facebook account. We'll be taking a look at a storm chaser that will be probably positioning himself around the Wichita, Kansas area tomorrow, possibly. Just depends on what the coverage is going to be like. We'll also be doing live storm coverage during Ustream on our StormQuest game Ustream account, and we'll be doing regular Twitter updates. So thank you for paying attention and taking your time to listen to us today. We, again, those of you who are in severe weather conditions for tomorrow, even today and tomorrow and the next day, need to be alert to what's going to be happening, listening to your local weather stations for further updates. We thank you for listening and have a great day.